Joining us now, Speaker of the House of Delegates in Virginia, Speaker Bill Howell. Speaker, good to have you, man.
Thank you, John. It's great to be back on.
Now, 2016, let's get to the big picture. Give us your overall recap, some of what you feel, Mr. Speaker, are your major accomplishments.
Well, it was a good, productive session. The biggest issue before us in every even-numbered year is the two-year budget, and we finished today early for the second year in a row. It's a very good, conservative, balanced budget. We made good progress on issues that matter, jobs, K-12 education, higher education. John, we continue to demonstrate the difference between Richmond and Washington. Mm-hmm. We get things done. Mm-hmm. We can work together. In Washington, they seem to have gridlock and partisanship, and they can barely pass a budget, let alone finish one ahead of schedule.
Right.
My caucus was as unified and as solid as I can remember it. It was just a very rewarding year in a lot of ways.
Now, look, how did you do that? I mean, you've got 66 members. It's like herding cats in there. Everybody's got their own opinion. You got a lot of independent people. That's how they get elected to office. You look on the Senate side, they had some issues there with Senator Sturtevant early on, going the other way with Roush. I mean, how are you able to maintain that consistency of, let's call it, unity in there?
Well, they're good people. We've known them. I've known them all for all their political life. Many of them we helped to recruit. We worked on their campaigns. We've developed relationships with them. And you're exactly right. They're 66 very different people, but they all have this ability to come together as a team, which is so helpful. And I'll tell you another thing, John. There's a lot of prayer that goes on. I've got a lot of people praying for me, praying for the caucus, and it works.
Well, there's no question the power of prayer might be a motivating factor in how you get things done. Maybe they need some of that in Washington, right? They should try it. Let's get to the budget that you guys submitted to the governor. I haven't heard him jumping up and down, threatening a lot of amendments or vetoes. What do you like about your budget, and what are some of the things different in that than was in the governor's original budget, sir?
Well, it is quite different in many ways from what the governor presented. We borrow a lot less money than he initially proposed. In fact, we cut the borrowing that he originally suggested by over a third. There is one-time borrowing for capital projects, but we don't use it, of course, for day-to-day expenses. No new taxes, no fee increases. We put about $600 million in new money into the rainy day fund, our savings account. We have significantly shored up our pension plan, the Virginia retirement system. And we were also able to prioritize K through 12 education. We got about $900 million in new funding. This helps the local governments. They've the amount of money that we've been able to send back to the local governments for K-12 education has not been as strong as it should have been because of the recession. Looks like we may be coming out of the recession. I'm still a little bit skeptical about that.
Right.
I think that's one reason we were so conservative in our budget. We didn't create new programs. We used any additional money on paying off debt, putting it into our rainy day fund, paying VRS requirements. It's a good conservative budget.
So you're basically pleased with it. Do you think there's anything in it that you've heard that the governor might be at odds with? Do you look for specific amendments, or do you think there's anything in it that he might be unhappy with?
Well, you never know with the guy. He's very good at taking credit for things. I think he'd like to take credit for a good, solid, balanced budget. Mm-hmm. Last year he didn't make any amendments. Perhaps he won't make any this year, or no significant ones.
Right. I haven't heard of any either, so hopefully we'll get through it the same way we did in 2015. Mr. Speaker, let's go to economic development and jobs. At the end of the day, if you don't have a job in Virginia and you're unemployed, things are not working well. You get a job, things get better immediately. Your budget invests heavily in economic development, which I'm in favor of. Can you kind of define that for us?
Sure. And to your point, John, and as I mentioned earlier, the indices would indicate that we're coming out of the recession, but I still am very concerned that Virginia's economic growth is still struggling. Last year, or actually in 2014, we had 0% growth in the budget. We were 48th in the country in economic growth. Sequestration, spending cuts are still around from the federal side. And what we need to do is to change, I think, our business model on how we attract and develop business in Virginia. For years, we've just been content to feed off the federal government, both the contracting jobs, the direct jobs with the government, the military, and that's been cut back a bit. It's hard to believe, but when you're $19 trillion in debt, you can't keep on spending like you did.
Right.
And so it's important that we find new types of business in Virginia. We've got great natural resources. We've got great people resources, great schools. We need to put them together and attract a new economy. And we spend a lot on economic development.
Right.
Since 2010, we've spent over $600 million on economic development. And I guess the question is, are we getting our money's worth? We put some more oversight into the economic development process. We've given JLARC, our Audit and Review Commission, oversight over economic development. We've created something we call Go Virginia, which will have far more checks and balances on economic development than our current system. So we're going to try and use our money smarter, and I think we can do it. Again, we've got a wonderful Commonwealth, great people, great workforce. We've just got to find the right opportunities for them. We just can't keep relying on the federal government.
Now, look, I know you guys have added some oversight after the $1 million failed deal at Appomattox, but I've taken the position that although I don't agree with Governor McAuliffe on everything, I think he's done a really good job in going out across the United States and internationally and trying to find company opportunities that bring back to Virginia. His Opportunity Fund is a big piece of that. And there's no doubt that he's brought jobs in and created jobs. And Appomattox was certainly a failure there. But, I mean, when you take risks like any entrepreneur, some things aren't going to work out. But hasn't he done a pretty good job, Mr. Speaker, in getting companies in and providing jobs for Virginians that might not have been there had he not taken the action?
John, I'd have to disagree with you a little bit on that. He's a promoter. There's no question about that. But I think it takes more than just going out and saying we've got the best place in the world, come see us. I think you've got to prove that you've got the workforce. You've got to prove that you've got the sites for this business to come. I think it goes a lot deeper than just being an ambassador and going around the world. An example I give often is the Stone Brewing Company that he attracted from California to come to Richmond.
Right.
He spent about $5 million from his Opportunity Fund to get them. The city of Richmond is spending a huge amount more than that, and it's going to create 88 jobs, and they're not great jobs. And I think the important thing is it's competing with other craft brewing companies that have been in Richmond for 10, 15, 25 years and have never gotten a nickel from the state. And he's bringing in a competitor and plopping them down and giving them $5 million to create maybe 88, 90 jobs. I think there's got to be a smarter way to do that. I think if you'd taken that $5 million, for example, and given it to 10 different craft brewing companies in Virginia and asked them to come up with a way where they could use that $500,000 each to create more jobs, I bet you would have created hundreds of jobs. And you'd be nurturing business that's already here. I think that's a key thing that we overlook. We've got good businesses here that are looking for opportunities to grow. We've got to give them that opportunity. Maybe
there's an opportunity going forward in 2017 to create that kind of a program, because that makes sense. You know, a lot of us, though, are very gun-shy after the TARP bank bailouts in, 2009, when Obama came in, or when George Bush was there, because the banks, took that money, and now they're bigger than ever. And they've consolidated. They took taxpayer money and just gobbled up all the little banks. And so it actually backfired at taxpayer expense. So there's a lot of us that are just very leery of giving money to companies on the promise they're going to do something. At the end of the day, They just, reap the profits of it. The TARP bailout put a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths.
As it should have. And John, you're exactly right. But that's one of the reasons that we've tried to increase the accountability. We've had in place what we call clawback provisions, where if a company doesn't meet certain standards, they have to give money back. But then if you're not careful, you have situations like the Appomattox, where the bad guys are in China, places like that, and you can't get the money back.
Right.
So that's why this year we've increased the accountability. We've increased the transparency on the type of projects that we're going to fund.
Well, that makes sense. And when you look at the Appomattox thing, North Carolina turned it down. They didn't have enough oversight there. And, when I read it, my initial reaction, Mr. Speaker, was that there was a haste to get a deal done. As Donald Trump says, no deal at all beats a bad deal. And I think they just wanted to get something done, and they didn't do their homework. And so, taxpayers were out $1 million. There has to be oversight on that. Second Amendment agreement, one of the biggest surprises of this session, no question. Remember, we started when Attorney General Herring revoked the 25-state reciprocity. A lot of people like me went bananas over it, and it seemed like we were powerless to do anything, that this Attorney General we have just does whatever he pleases, tramples over people, Constitution, everything else. You guys worked out what I thought was your shining moment of, shall we say, compromise. You got an agreement where everybody got something, but at the end of the day, everybody was mad. And the best deals in politics are when everybody's mad, in my view. Right?
That's true.
But walk us through, Mr. Speaker, how that happened.
Well, you laid the groundwork. Attorney General Herring's announcement last year was devastating to anybody that holds the Second Amendment as near and dear to them, as many of us do. And we were looking for answers. Several people put in legislation that would undo it, but we were concerned that the governor would veto it. But as it turned out, the governor had sort of a change of heart. He read the political implications, I think, more clearly than Herring did, and saw the tremendous backlash that was coming from not only in Virginia, but across the country. I got letters from people in Georgia and Florida that said, I'm never coming to Virginia again.
Right.
And so I think it's helpful to know Senator Bryce Reeves from Spotsylvania and Delegate Todd Gilbert and a couple of others reached out to the administration and talked about what can we do to restore this reciprocity. And the bottom line was they were able to negotiate a deal that expanded reciprocity to every state in the country that has a reciprocity arrangement.
Right.
And what we had to give up in return was I think very small by return. It was a very good deal for the Second Amendment supporters.
Well, look, it was a good deal because you didn't really give up anything, in my judgment. I think the opportunity to have a state police presence at a gun show and give the seller of the gun the option to go to the state police and do a background check on somebody they're buying a gun with. If I was selling one out of my collection, I would certainly do that. I would sleep better at night, but it's by choice. And so I don't see how anybody can be upset with that. I thought that was a fabulous compromise. I've only got 2 more minutes. I want to go and talk about offshore drilling. This is going to be a big issue now in Virginia. Terry McAuliffe is for some of it, not for some of it, but he is for some of it. How do we get this moving?
Well, we're going to have to get a new president. There's no question about that. But as with so many other issues that we're seeing, I'm terribly disappointed, but not surprised by President Obama's reversal.
Unbelievable.
Apparently he's saying all of the above except fossil fuel. He doesn't like coal, he doesn't like gas, and he doesn't like oil.
Right.
I thought Ed Gillespie had a great op-ed piece in the Richmond Times-Dispatch this past Sunday, pointing out the opportunities that we're losing. Offshore drilling presents a great opportunity for Virginia. It's a great opportunity for an additional source of energy. It's a great opportunity to create new jobs. Again, we're talking about creating jobs, and these are great jobs that would be created. And it's a safe, reliable way to generate energy that's going to lower energy costs.
Well, without a doubt,
it's
yes.
a win-win. It's just going to take a new administration, I'm afraid.
Right. So where everybody's fine on the state level, it's basically we just need somebody at the top in order to have us go forward with it. Final